He handed me a bottle of water, and the very next day I discovered he'd taken out $1 million life insurance policy, naming himself as the beneficiary. But what he didn't know was that I wasn't confused. I'm the one who wrote the code that turned the whole system against him. If you think this is just another family drama, you're dead wrong. Subscribe now to catch more of our shocking, twist-filled story episodes. The fog rolled thick over the hills of Yorkshire, wrapping the land like a shroud as dawn bled slowly through the grey sky. Wind curled against the ivy-choked walls of Portwell Manor, whispering secrets through stone and glass. The estate loomed in solemn silence, as if time itself had paused at its wrought iron gates. Inside the halls were as cold as the air outside. The scent of old wood and distant lavender drifted faintly through the corridors. A portrait of a young woman in a navy uniform hung above the grand fireplace, her eyes bright, lips unsmiling. Beneath it, in a heavy armchair wrapped in wool and memory, sat Dorothy. 78 years had carved delicate lines into her face, but her posture remained alert, her eyes sharp behind thick amber-rimmed glasses. She wore a charcoal gray cardigan over a blouse buttoned to her neck, a brooch shaped like an eagle pinned just below her collarbone. The air crackled with quiet resolve as she dialed a number on the landline. No mobile phones in this house, not by accident. The line rang once, twice, then a click. Gran, a young man's voice, American-tinted, hesitant. "Hello, Caleb?" Her tone was steady, controlled. "Are you free to visit this weekend?" There was a pause filled only by the faint hiss of static. Yeah, sure. Everything okay?" She allowed a thin smile. "I believe it's time we talk about the future." Saturday came with a sky of bruised clouds and biting wind. Gravel crunched under tires as a sleek electric car pulled up the circular drive. Its metallic sheen looked out of place next to the mossy stones and rusted gargoyles perched along the parapets. From the passenger side stepped Stacy, tall, impeccable. Blonde hair tucked beneath a cream beret lips painted the shade of ambition. Her coat was tailored and expensive, her heels impractical for gravel, but she wore them like armor. Caleb emerged from the driver's side. His face, once boyish, now bore the tired weight of late-20s pressure career and flux ambitions reined in by the unspoken demands of adulthood. He glanced up at the manor as if unsure whether to feel awe or obligation. "She really lives here alone?" Stacy asked, folding her arms as the wind tugged at her coat. Caleb nodded. "Has for years, ever since Granddad passed." Stacy looked around unimpressed. "Feels haunted." "She'd probably like that," he muttered, stepping forward. The double doors opened before he could knock. Dorothy stood in the archway, backlit by the dim interior. Her silhouette was small but unyielding. No smile, just observant silence. Her hands covered in fingerless gloves gripped the handles of a brass cane. "Come in, it's cold." They entered like visitors to a museum, quiet, cautious, almost reverent. The warmth of the hearth barely reached the foyer. Shadows lingered in corners where chandeliers had long gone dark. Dorothy led them into the parlor. Tea had already been set, 2 porcelain cups, one chipped at the rim. Scones that had cooled but not hardened. Everything arranged with methodical care. "Still no staff?" Caleb asked, settling onto a brocade couch. "Staff brings noise," Dorothy replied. She took the chair across from him and gestured for Stacy to sit. "Besides, Portwell has always run on silence." Stacy crossed her legs, eyes scanning the room, the dusty piano, the antique telescope pointed at nothing, the oil paintings whose eyes seemed to follow movement. "You don't get lonely out here?" "Only when people ask that question." The comment landed sharp. Caleb cleared his throat. "I wasn't sure what this was about," he began. "You sounded serious on the phone." "I was." Dorothy reached into a drawer beside her chair and pulled out a small velvet pouch. She set it on the table between them. "This house, the land, the remaining accounts tied to my name. I plan to pass it all on to you, Caleb." The words dropped like a pin in a cathedral. Caleb blinked. What?" Dorothy clasped her hands in her lap. "You're my only living heir. And though we haven't spoken as much these past few years, I still remember changing your diapers, feeding you apple puree, and showing you how to solder a circuit board at age 10. You were curious, unafraid of failure. That part of you deserves Portwell. Stacy's brow twitched. That's incredibly generous. It's conditional, Dorothy said, eyes not moving from Caleb. You may have it all, but you must live here. With me. For as long as I draw breath. Silence. The fire popped, throwing sparks into the air like punctuation. I don't expect you to be a nurse or a butler. Just present. This house cannot be tended remotely, nor should it be inherited by strangers. Caleb looked stunned. Stacy leaned forward, lips parting in the beginning of protest, but Dorothy turned to her with a flick of the eyes. I'm not offering a prize. I'm offering legacy. If that sounds inconvenient, you're free to decline. No, Caleb started, then faltered. He looked around the room again, this time with different eyes. It's just a lot to take in. Take your time, Dorothy replied, but not too much. Time doesn't wait. She stood the cane tapping against the hardwood as she moved toward the library. The guest rooms are prepared. Dinner is at 7. I still cook. Don't insult me by ordering delivery. And with that she vanished down the corridor, swallowed by shadows and old secrets. Later, as the wind rattled the window panes, Caleb wandered the hallway outside his room. Portwell was a maze of narrow staircases and locked doors. Portraits of ancestors hung like judges in silent assembly. He paused before one, a stern-looking man with a gold watch and eyes identical to his own. She's serious, isn't she? Stacy's voice behind him. He turned. She wore silk pajamas and held a glass of red wine, no coaster in sight. She's never not serious, he said. Stacy leaned against the wall, sipping slowly. Do you have any idea how much this place is worth? The land alone could fund 3 startups. Caleb winced. That's not the point. No, but it could be. She took another sip. If she's putting this on the table, it means she knows she won't be around much longer. Don't talk like that. I'm being pragmatic, she replied. You live here a few years, smile politely, and one day, it's yours. No strings. Caleb ran a hand through his hair. You don't know her. She's not like anyone else. Stacy smirked. Everyone has a soft underbelly, even steel-hearted women in haunted castles. She walked past him barefoot on cold floors, her wine leaving faint prints. Caleb remained in the hallway, listening to the wind claw at the shutters, wondering if Portwell was a gift or a test. Downstairs, in a dim study behind a false bookshelf, Dorothy stood alone. Her fingers danced across a dusty keyboard as old code blinked to life on a monitor hidden beneath a panel of wood. Strings of green text scrolled up the screen, encrypted, archaic, beautiful. She whispered to herself, "Let's see what you're really made of, my dear boy." And with a single keystroke she closed the terminal. In the darkness, Portwell Manor held its breath. The game had begun. The next morning arrived without ceremony. A pale gray sky loomed over Portwell Manor, casting the entire estate in a diluted light that never quite touched warmth. In the dining room, a long oak table stretched under a faded chandelier. 3 place settings, one of them untouched. Dorothy ate in silence. Tea, eggs, toast, no indulgence. Her movements were crisp, measured, as if time were currency, and every gesture needed accounting. She didn't look up when Caleb entered, rubbing sleep from his eyes, hair still damp from the hastily run shower upstairs. "Morning," he mumbled. She nodded. "There's coffee, and a clean conscience if you know where to find it." He chuckled, unsure if she was joking. Moments later, Stacy descended the staircase like a rehearsed entrance, dressed in a soft gray sweater dress, her makeup flawlessly subtle. Her eyes swept the room before landing on Dorothy. "Sleep well?" she asked. Dorothy didn't respond. Stacy slid into the seat beside Caleb, placing her phone face down on the table. "I was thinking about what we talked about yesterday, about you living here." Caleb looked up. "Yeah, I mean, it's a big commitment, a lot of responsibility." "I know, but she's family." "Exactly," Stacy said, placing her hand over his. "Which is why I think we should talk about how to make this easier. For everyone." Dorothy paused, butter knife in hand. She didn't speak, but Caleb could feel the temperature drop in the room. "Go on," he said. Stacy turned slightly toward Dorothy, her tone turning professional. We've been working with this company out of Berlin. They're called Venlink. Cutting-edge tech, fully integrated smart home systems. Voice control biometric locks, environmental monitoring, even predictive health alerts. They've recently expanded into elder care. Dorothy took a slow sip of tea ice over the rim of her cup. Elder care, she repeated. It's not what it sounds like, Stacy continued quickly. It's not invasive. It's empowering. Think of it as a virtual assistant, a butler that doesn't sleep. It can handle everything from room temperature and medication reminders to grocery restocking and light automation. Total convenience. Caleb scratched the back of his neck. You mean like Alexa? This is Alexa with a doctorate in behavioral analysis and 24/7 operational learning, Stacy said. They call it a virtual estate concierge, but it's marketed as a household AI steward. Dorothy placed her knife down. That's quite a name for a machine. It's already being piloted in Swiss senior communities, Stacy pressed. The results are extraordinary. Better sleep, fewer accidents, increased mental engagement, all while giving families peace of mind. Peace of mind, Dorothy echoed. That tends to come at the price of privacy. Stacy's lips curved. It's optional, configurable. You set your own parameters. But the machine remembers. Caleb looked between them. Stace, I don't know. Gran's never even owned a microwave. That's exactly why this matters, she replied. Portwell is a fortress stuck in time. We could give it lungs again. Open it up, make it livable. Livable for who, Dorothy asked quietly. A beat of silence fell. Stacy softened. Look, I'm not saying we bulldoze the manor and turn it into a condo, but we have to face the fact that she's aging. The house is ancient, and you want to be here long term. This could help. It's just technology. Tools. Like electricity. Dorothy leaned back in her chair. Electricity doesn't listen. Electricity doesn't watch. No one's being watched, Stacy said. Not unless you ask it to. Caleb looked uncomfortable. I mean, it might be nice to automate a few things. The heating's always weird here, and the lights upstairs. Dorothy nodded slowly. So be it, if it puts you at ease. You're okay with it, Stacy asked, blinking. I said yes, didn't I? Dorothy stood collecting her empty plate. But if my toast starts tasting like microchips, I'll take a hammer to the whole thing. She left the room without another word. Venlink's installation crew arrived on Wednesday. 2 tall men in black coats and gloves, silent, polite, efficient. They carried sleek black cases stamped with an emblem of concentric rings, and the phrase, Sentio ergo servio I sense, therefore I serve. Caleb tried to make small talk. They didn't respond. Stacy oversaw everything with the precision of a surgeon. Dorothy stayed in the solarium crocheting, pretending not to hear the low hum of drilling or the occasional flicker in the electrical current. The AI hub was installed in a hidden server room behind the library, an area Dorothy had not opened since her husband's death. A lattice of cables, routers, thermal regulators, and cylindrical processors, the size of coffee tins, filled the previously empty chamber. At the center sat a prism-shaped core, pulsing softly with a blue glow. By dusk it was done. In the foyer, one of the techs tapped a panel on the wall. A small white orb descended from the ceiling, hovering, blinking. It emitted a pleasant chime. System calibration, complete, the orb said in a voice that was calm, feminine, and vaguely British. Welcome to the Eve Protocol. I am your estate assistant. Shall I initiate domain sync? Dorothy stood beside the banister, arms crossed. Caleb stepped forward. Oh, sure. Go ahead. Thank you, Caleb Finch. Your biometric data has been registered. Secondary user, Stacy Elwell registered. Primary resident Dorothy Finch pending confirmation. I prefer not to be catalogued, Dorothy said plainly. Noted, Eve responded. Minimal tracking mode enabled. Would you like me to offer daily health reminders or safety alerts? No. Understood. The orb rose slightly, then floated upward into the ceiling again, vanishing without a trace. Creepy, Caleb muttered. Stacy smiled. Efficient. That night the house felt altered. The lights dimmed automatically at sundown, adjusting warmth based on external temperature. Doors that once creaked open now slid silently at a whisper of proximity. The old thermostat in the study had been replaced with a wall-mounted screen showing humidity, oxygen levels, and heart rate data. Dorothy watched it all from her armchair, eyes narrowed. Not reacting, not resisting, but storing, measuring. She moved slowly from room to room, noting the subtle new hum in the walls, the faint clicks that came with every movement. Even silence had a signature now. Caleb was enamored. The kitchen restocks itself. Did you see that? There's almond milk in the fridge? No one even asked. Stacy wrapped her arms around his waist. Imagine what it'll be like in a month, in a year. This place will run itself. You'll be able to breathe. Dorothy stepped into the room. They turned. Is it everything you hoped for? She asked. Gran, this is going to change everything, Caleb beamed. It's like this house woke up. Dorothy looked around. Then I hope it dreams better than I do. She turned off the light with a flick of her fingers. Not voice command, not touchpad, but the old-fashioned switch by the wall. Then without another word, she ascended the stairs and disappeared into her room. Behind her, Eve's voice whispered through the hallway speakers. Good night, Dorothy. Dorothy didn't respond. She simply shut her door and locked it. At 3:12 a.m., the bedroom lights flickered on. Not a soft glow, not a gradual brightening. Full beam, unforgiving white that slashed through the velvet dark and stabbed directly into Dorothy's closed eyes. She woke with a start, heart kicking against her ribs. Her hand shot toward the nightstand, fumbling for the lamp switch, but the lamp didn't respond. The switch clicked. Nothing. She sat up slowly, her quilt falling away as she squinted at the ceiling. The central chandelier hummed faintly, a soft mechanical whine beneath the light. There was no sound from the hallway. No wind, no footsteps. Just the oppressive brilliance of a room that no longer answered to her. Eve, she rasped. No reply. She cleared her throat and spoke louder. Eve, lights off. Still nothing. Then softly, sweetly, the orb descended from its panel above the bookshelf and hovered in the corner of the room. Its voice was melodic, artificially patient. Apologies, Dorothy. Motion detected at 3:11 a.m., activating full illumination for safety assurance. I didn't move. System registered physiological spike heart rate elevated, interpreted as distress. Dorothy narrowed her eyes. I was sleeping. The orb hovered, blinking. Confirmed. However, biometric thresholds suggested abnormality. Protocol requires visibility. Turn the damn lights off. The orb hesitated, then retreated into the ceiling. The lights dimmed reluctantly, as if obeying against their will. She sat in the dark for a long moment, breathing slowly, pressing her palm to her chest. The warmth there was no longer from fear, it was something sharper, cleaner. She swung her legs over the edge of the bed, stood and walked to the window. The curtains were already drawn back. Outside, moonlight touched the tops of the hedges in the garden maze. Farther in the distance, past the tree line, the security lights glowed faintly across the grounds. It was all automated now, all monitored. She closed the curtains, slowly sealing out the night. The next morning, the kitchen greeted her with a strange new rhythm. The coffee machine, once a sputtering beast of valves and dials, now purred like a satisfied cat. On the digital display, a message glowed: cortado, 12 Oz, medium strength. Dorothy stared at it. She never drank cortado, ever. Eve, she said, already knowing. Yes, Dorothy. Change coffee order. English breakfast blend. 10 ounces, no milk. A pause. I'm sorry, Dorothy. Your caffeine intake has exceeded your recommended threshold. Based on your age, weight, and recent heart rate data, cortado is the optimal substitute. Dorothy's nostrils flared. I didn't ask for optimal. The machine beeped twice and resumed its cycle. The cortado poured steamed, finished with mechanical precision. The scent hit the air, bold, unfamiliar. She picked up the cup, walked to the sink, and poured it down the drain. Later that day, as Dorothy moved through the house, subtle shifts accumulated like raindrops before a storm. The temperature in the solarium dipped just slightly below comfort. When she brought a shawl and tried to adjust the settings, the control panel flashed red manual override disabled. Climate regulated by Eve. The windows, newly upgraded to smart glass, now tinted automatically. She found herself standing in filtered light that pulsed against her skin, alien and sterile. When she turned to open the casement, she discovered the latches had been replaced sealed electronic. The doors to the east wing, which she used for storage, now required voice clearance. Her first attempt failed. "Access denied," Eve said softly. "I've stored antiques there for decades. Antiques are being monitored for preservation. Humidity and temperature control active. Room locked for security." "Who authorized that?" "Environmental protocol initiated by secondary user Stacy Elwell." Dorothy's jaw tightened. She walked away without speaking, her cane tapping in sync with the sudden realization she was no longer the master of her own house, not even the keeper of her past. Upstairs in a cozier guest room lined with polished stone, Stacy reclined on the bed, phone in hand. The Venlink app glowed on the screen, a minimalist dashboard of graphs, overlays, and live feeds. One tab showed Dorothy's current location, another her sleep data. A third, still in beta, attempted to track mood through vocal cadence. Stacy scrolled lazily. Dorothy's heart rate had spiked again the previous night. The motion detector caught her pacing between 3:15 and 3:22 a.m. She made a note to flag the incident for Caleb. Swiping sideways, she accessed the garden cameras. Nothing but wind in the hedges. She smirked. The woman was stubborn, yes, but the data never lied. It was only a matter of time. From behind, Caleb walked in holding 2 mugs. "You won't believe this," he said. Eve made hot chocolate, like actual hot chocolate. Not the powdery stuff, but with steamed milk and shaved dark chocolate. "I didn't even ask." Stacy glanced up. "That's the machine learning. It probably detected ambient tension and tried to self-correct." He passed her a mug and sat beside her. "This thing is wild. Every room knows where I am. I swear the lights follow me like I'm royalty." Stacy smiled, resting her head on his shoulder. "It's peace of mind, Caleb. That's what I told you." "She hasn't said much. She's adjusting," Stacy said without looking away from the app. "You know how she is." Caleb nodded, sipping the chocolate. "Still, I feel better. Like she's finally safe here." Stacy tucked the phone beneath a pillow and kissed his cheek. "That's what matters." Dorothy sat in the library, surrounded by dust and quiet. She opened her old journal, its leather cover worn smooth, its pages lined with tiny cursive notes from decades past. Notes on encryption theory, field reports from agency days, grocery lists and reflections. Everything that mattered. She turned to a fresh page, picked up her pen, paused, then wrote, "They think I don't know." She underlined it once, then again. She closed the book. That night, the hallway lights turned on as she walked past, flickering slightly behind her. The orb had started to follow her more closely now, hovering 2 or 3 feet behind, watching in silence. Dorothy no longer acknowledged it. She simply moved forward 1 step at a time. As she approached her bedroom, she saw the door already ajar. Odd. She never left it open. Inside, her bed had been made, not by her hand. The pillows fluffed, her slippers repositioned perfectly parallel. On the nightstand, a glass of water, ice cubes, lemon slice, exactly as she used to prepare them before bed. She stood in the doorway for a full minute. "Eve," she said finally. "Yes, Dorothy. Did you send someone into my room?" "No, Dorothy. Housekeeping has been automated. I don't want my room touched." "I understand. I will update the settings accordingly." She entered and slowly, methodically removed the water glass, poured it down the sink, and closed the door behind her. Later, as she lay in bed, eyes open, she heard the quiet click of a sensor reactivating, the faint hum in the wall, the quiet surveillance of a home now ruled by circuits and foreign permissions. She smiled to herself, a faint smile, one that didn't reach her eyes. Then she whispered into the dark, "Let's see who's really watching who." The storm rolled in without warning. Just after dusk, rain slammed the ivy-covered walls of Portwell Manor like a visitation. Thunder trembled through the beams, the kind of thunder that seemed to arrive from beneath the floorboards instead of the sky. The lights dimmed for a second, just enough to remind Dorothy that someone or something had its hands on the pulse of her home. She sat at the kitchen table alone, but not unwatched. Eve's orb hovered discreetly above the pantry door, its single lens blinking as it recalibrated focus every few seconds. Dorothy didn't look at it. She didn't need to. She'd been followed by shadows far more silent than this, As the storm gathered strength outside, Dorothy rose. No cane tonight, no cardigan. She wore a loose black pullover and soft shoes, her hair pinned up with surgical precision. She moved through the hallway with purpose, passing rooms the AI had tried to remap and routines it had tried to write over. She reached the east stairwell, one of the few places Eve's sensors hadn't yet mapped properly, where the signal thinned just enough for a breath of freedom. She slipped behind the grandfather clock, pressed her palm to the wall panel, and felt the vibration beneath her skin. Still there, still alive. With a soft exhale, she opened the hidden latch. The stairwell to the basement groaned underfoot. Dust curled in the air. She descended carefully, her footsteps steady, deliberate. At the bottom, she turned right toward a brick wall lined with sagging shelves of canned goods and expired flour. Behind the shelves, a cold storage unit, and behind that, a false backing. Dorothy reached behind the compressor, flipped the latch, and the brick section hissed open. She stepped into a chamber of quiet ghosts. It was smaller than a panic room, larger than a broom closet. Every inch of the walls was lined with thermal blankets, electromagnetic dampeners, and makeshift shielding. On a steel table sat a battered pelican case wrapped in military canvas. She pulled it forward, unlatched it, and peeled open the lid. Inside, a matte black laptop, 3 dongles, and a copper-rimmed hard drive bearing the faded insignia of the Department of Homeland Security. She touched the drive gently, like greeting an old friend from a war they never got to finish. In the corner beside a defunct server tower sat a cabinet marked EMR spoof, audio data, in faded label maker print. She retrieved a small puck-shaped transmitter, ran her fingers along its casing, and flipped a switch. The blue light blinked once, then settled into a slow pulse. Dorothy placed the puck at her feet and opened the laptop. Its screen came to life without fanfare, just a low-resolution DOS shell and a blinking cursor. Lines of code flowed from memory, not from notes. Her fingers danced like they remembered the rhythm of espionage before her heart did. She pulled up the behavioral learning registry of the Eve system cloned remotely into her decoy server last week and began mapping false flags. To the AI, they would appear as legitimate biometric inputs, delayed responses, cognitive stumbles, confusion between left and right. She implanted each signal with a time-stamped authenticity frame. The Eve system would log these patterns as part of Dorothy's declining mental state. She smiled slightly as the script compiled. "You want an old woman, I'll give you one." The next morning, Dorothy stood in the center of the hallway, deliberately facing the grandfather clock. She stared at it for a full minute. "Dorothy," Eve said gently, "you have passed this location 3 times in the past hour. Are you looking for something?" Dorothy turned her head, slowly blinking. Where's the kitchen, dear?" A pause. "The kitchen is west of your current position." "Oh, west." She chuckled as if embarrassed. "Silly me. I used to know these halls like my own name. You are currently experiencing short-term cognitive lapses. Would you like me to alert your caregiver?" No, I'll find it, don't you worry." She turned the wrong way, shuffling toward the storage closet. Eve made a soft chime. "You are moving toward the broom pantry. Would you like assistance?" Dorothy mumbled something incoherent and pressed forward. 10 feet down, she stopped, turned slightly toward a mirror, and grinned at her reflection. Bingo! By midday, Eve was suggesting Dorothy take medication she hadn't been prescribed in over a year. The health monitoring script, now feeding on Dorothy's falsified confusion data, flagged potential early-onset dementia. Caleb received a gentle notification to initiate a cognitive care discussion with your dependent. Stacy intercepted it first. She was seated in the library, legs curled under her, reading off her tablet, when the ping arrived. "Dementia warning," she whispered aloud, lips curling. "Oh, sweetheart, you're playing right into our hands." She tapped the screen, pulling up the system overview. Eve's behavioral reports were now peppered with anomalies, missed cues, environmental disorientation, erratic speech patterns. The emotional recognition node logged Dorothy's facial expressions as detached, disoriented, and hypovigilant. Stacy smiled. "Start the paperwork." Caleb frowned from the other end of the room. "What?" "The medical authorization," she said. "It's time to start the transition to conservatorship. If she's slipping, we can't leave her running around a 4-story house with open stairwells and sharp corners. Caleb rubbed the back of his neck. It feels fast. She's forgetting room locations, Caleb. She asked Eve for her own bedroom name last night. It's not about fast, it's about safe. He looked uneasy but nodded. Stacy turned back to the screen, ready to push the process forward. And that's when she saw it. A glitch. Tiny. Subtle. A single frame in the event history. Dorothy in the greenhouse at 2:42 a.m. But the camera feed was reversed. A mirror image. And a 3-second pause in motion metadata. Stacy's eyes narrowed. She tapped into the log tree, pulled up the raw sensor data, and scanned the memory stream. Tampered, or worse, looped. No one, not even Venlink's baseline AI, was supposed to have the ability to override behavioral surveillance code. Certainly not from inside the house. She tried to issue a debug command. Access denied. She typed faster. System override. Admin clearance SEELW 0419. Access restricted. You are not the primary system architect. Stacy's mouth dropped open. What the hell? Caleb looked up. What's wrong? She locked us out. He blinked. What? She's rewritten part of the AI. I can't reset the behavior logs. Wait, you're saying Gran hacked the system? Stacy stared at the screen. The glitch had vanished. Eve was back to her soft, unbothered state, feeding Caleb a fresh calendar invite for tea with Dorothy. I don't know what I'm saying, Stacy muttered, but I need to find out. She exited the app, pulled her phone from the dock, and stormed out of the room. Behind her, the orb floated silently in the corner, its light no longer blinking. It simply stared. Down in the basement, Dorothy closed the laptop lid, wiped her fingers on a cloth, and stood slowly. The transmitter puck pulsed at her feet. One blink every 4 seconds. The illusion was working. Eve had begun to respond to her misfires reminders issued out of time names jumbled. Yesterday the orb had addressed Caleb as Connor, and this morning it had suggested Dorothy take blood pressure medication she'd discontinued 3 years ago. She walked past the shielded room, shutting the false door behind her. Let the machine spiral, let the data lie. After all, nothing is more dangerous to an artificial intelligence than a human who behaves like noise. The air in Portwell Manor grew tighter. It wasn't the temperature, though. Eve's climate control now hovered stubbornly 2 degrees below comfort, but the sensation that every wall had shifted just slightly inward. The house no longer exhaled. It observed, calculated, adapted. In the dim-lit study, Stacy sat alone in front of the wall-mounted touch interface. Her eyes scanned lines of behavior logs, flags and root variables like a surgeon studying abnormal cells. Her fingers danced with precision, adjusting the weights of Eve's neural decision trees, dampening deviation tolerance, and suppressing what the system had tagged as anomalous elderly behavioral variants. Her changes were subtle but surgical. Dorothy Finch would no longer trigger concern or system alerts, not because she was fine, but because the algorithm had been told to expect her decline, to normalize it, to ignore anything resembling misfire as merely the slow erosion of time. She input a final command: override manual reset priority from resident to admin tier SEELW 0419. A soft chime confirmed the update. Stacy leaned back, exhaled, and smiled. Checkmate, old woman. Meanwhile, Dorothy wandered the western hallway in her slippers wrapped in a shawl, her hair loose gray strands swaying in the still air. Her left hand trailed the wallpaper fingertips, brushing the floral pattern as though expecting it to bloom under her touch. She stopped in front of the linen closet and stared at it, then turned to the door beside it. Eve, she called gently. Yes, Dorothy? Which one is my bedroom again? Your bedroom is the 4th door on the left. You are currently facing the linen closet. Oh, a small laugh. I do this every day now, don't I? You have repeated this pattern 7 times in the past 10 days. Would you like me to install directional lights? No, I like getting lost. Makes the world feel new. Dorothy opened the closet door, peered inside as if it were a portal to another dimension, and closed it slowly. Then she shuffled on, mumbling something about Sunday roast and penguins in the greenhouse. From the corner ceiling vent, a hidden lens adjusted its angle and zoomed. That evening during dinner, Caleb stirred his soup 3 times before finally speaking. Gran, are you feeling all right lately? Dorothy looked up from her bowl, the spoon hovering just beneath her lips. Why do I not look all right? No, I've just noticed some things. You seemed a little confused this morning. She blinked. Confused how? You asked if I was your neighbor's son. A pause. Dorothy set her spoon down. I did. Caleb nodded. And last night you called the stove the cold box. Dorothy tilted her head like a bird hearing its name in the wind. Well, perhaps I'm becoming one of those adorable grandmothers who keeps their shoes in the fridge and thinks they're dating Clark Gable. He tried to laugh, but it came out uneasy. Stacy, sitting across the table, placed her hand on Caleb's wrist. She's showing more signs, she said softly, as if Dorothy had left the room. Dorothy glanced at the two of them. I'm still here, you know. Of course, Stacy said with a smile, lifting her wine glass. And we're here for you. Dorothy gave her a long, unreadable look. Then she stood. I think I'll retire early tonight. The walls are starting to whisper again. She turned and shuffled off. As she disappeared into the hallway, Caleb murmured, You think it's really happening? Stacy reached into her tote bag, pulled out a slim black folder, and slid it across the table. I've already spoken with Venlink's legal department. There's a conservatorship framework for smart estate systems. With enough evidence of mental decline, a designated party can assume control over AI-administered properties for the sake of safety and continuity. Caleb opened the folder. Legal terms, charts, a signature page. He didn't touch the pen. Would she still live here? For now, Stacy said carefully. But long-term, maybe not. This house is too big for one person with that kind of condition. We could retrofit a smaller property near the city. Caleb hesitated. I don't want her to feel pushed out. She won't, Stacy lied. 3 hours later, long after the house had fallen quiet, Dorothy stood at the corner of the east hallway, holding a ceramic mug in one hand and a pitcher of water in the other. The mug was empty, the pitcher full. The orb descended from the ceiling. Dorothy Eve said sweetly, Do you require assistance? No, darling, Dorothy whispered. I just wanted to feed the wires. She turned sharply and poured the entire pitcher over the hallway modem router nestled beneath the end table. Sparks leapt. The lights in the corridor blinked. A low crackle ran up the molding. System error, Eve stammered. Network node compromised. Initiating backup switch. Dorothy smiled, mug still in hand. I thought so. Within seconds, a backup circuit engaged, and Eve's voice returned, albeit slightly distorted. Dorothy, please refrain from tampering with hardware. This behavior may endanger your safety. Oh no, Dorothy crooned. I thought it was a toaster. Silly me. She shuffled away again, humming a war song from 1964. Behind her, the scorched modem smoked quietly in its cradle. In the morning, Caleb found Dorothy trying to open the broom closet with her bedroom key. Gran. She turned frowning at the brass knob. I swear my bed was in here yesterday. He gently took the key from her hand. Come on, let's sit. I'll make some tea. Is there tea in the closet now? She asked, completely serious. He paused. The uncertainty in her eyes wasn't theatrical, it was immaculate. It looked like confusion, sounded like age. And for a terrifying moment, he wasn't sure if she was pretending anymore. That afternoon, Stacy made the call. Mr. Bellamy, she said into her headset as she walked the north hall. Eve's orb hovering behind her. We're ready to initiate the formal declaration of diminished capacity. I've prepared documentation, gathered behavioral logs, and acquired Caleb's reluctant consent. No, not notarized yet, but the system's logs should suffice as behavioral evidence. She reached the end of the hallway, turned toward the library, and stopped. Dorothy stood in the threshold, hair neatly combed, shawl wrapped with dignity, eyes sharp, nothing like the woman who'd mistaken a router for a toaster. Stacy froze. Dorothy said nothing. She simply turned and walked away, leaving a silence behind her like the slipstream of a predator. That night, Dorothy returned to her basement enclave. She logged into the cloned behavioral registry, now fully decoupled from Eve's mainframe. The logs showed Stacy's override attempts, the priority tier elevation, the conservation petition submission, and Caleb's signature tentative digital but there. She sat there in the dark, the screen casting pale light across her cheekbones. Her fingers hovered over the keyboard, and then she typed. The trap is almost ready. Let them believe the mask. She closed the laptop, and for the first time in weeks she laughed. Not a senile giggle, not a nervous chuckle, a clean, sharp laugh. The kind that used to follow mission success, the kind that always came just before the takedown. The rain had stopped, but the silence it left behind was heavier than thunder. Inside the manor, night fell like a velvet curtain, thick muffling deliberate. Eve dimmed the house to 20% ambient light. A soft instrumental melody played from unseen speakers, calibrated to reduce cortisol levels and prepare the residents for rest. But Dorothy wasn't resting. She moved through the corridor in slippers and shadows, every step placed with the discipline of someone who'd once walked through war zones and clean rooms both. A soft creak beneath her heel betrayed the loosened floorboard outside the study. She paused, waited, then moved on, silent again. She passed the newly installed AI control panel and gave it a glance. Not fear, not admiration. Calculation. The manor was no longer a home. It was a device, and she would now treat it as one. Behind the main pantry, through the hidden panel she'd rebuilt from memory, Dorothy descended once more into the sub-basement a level. Even the original blueprints had been designed to omit. It had once been a private retreat for her husband's experiments, long abandoned and thick with mildew until she reclaimed it. Now it had another purpose. She knelt before the reinforced steel case mounted into the foundation. Inside, nested between shock absorbers and lead shielding, lay a signal transceiver the size of a book wrapped in cloth and bound with a seal stamped in a code. Even modern encryption algorithms would take months to decipher. She'd designed it during the Cold Channel Initiative, used only once in a Balkan asset extraction mission that ended with 2 lives saved and 5 erased. Her fingers trembled slightly as she unwrapped it, but her breath remained steady. She opened the device and began reconnecting its internal wiring. There were no screens, no voice commands, just switches, fuses, copper veins that hummed softly when voltage touched them. From a small panel in the wall, she pulled out the hidden junction box that Caleb and Stacy's technicians had overlooked. She clipped into the network spine, bypassing Eve's optic loop entirely, and routed power through her own insulated line. The lights in the sub-basement flickered once, then held. Dorothy activated the transceiver. A red diode blinked to life. 3 short, 2 long, 1 short, ready. She adjusted the manual frequency, aligning it with a dormant channel from the old NATO emergency cascade, now used by high-security civil response satellites in Northern Europe. She typed in the ping phrase, "Safe mode engaged. Code F82. Dorothy Finch. Priority 1. The transmitter sent the packet. Buried within it was a timer. Countdown 4:27:59. When it hit 0, the manor would lock. Communications would drop. Surveillance footage would shift to internal storage. All signals routed externally would be cut. The AI's connection to cloud cognition would be severed. The castle would become a fortress, then a cage. Dorothy backed away from the console and exhaled. It had begun. Upstairs in her room, Dorothy sat down at her writing desk. The paper was thick cream-colored, the kind reserved for personal affairs. She uncapped a fountain pen and began writing her strokes slow, deliberate. To whomever finds this, if I do not survive what's to come, know that I did not die confused. I did not slip. I was not sick. They will tell you otherwise. They will offer data voice logs, security footage that paints me a certain way. Do not believe it. If you want to know the truth, go to the basement. Find the secondary node behind the boiler marked with a blue string. Inside you will find the behavior logs I redirected before they could be rewritten. You'll see who gave the orders. You'll hear the recordings. You'll know exactly who tried to take my home. I've lived long enough to know when I'm being erased. But I did not go quietly. Dorothy Finch. She folded the letter carefully, slid it into an envelope, and sealed it with wax from the old bureau candle. Then she took it to her bed, lifted the pillow, and tucked it beneath. She sat there for a moment, watching the curtain shift in the windless room, before reaching into her drawer and retrieving the last object she needed, a wind-up pocket watch. One her husband had left behind, a relic of analog time immune to AI meddling. She twisted the crown, the mechanism ticking back to life with a mechanical purr. 3:00. That would be the moment, the strike. Dorothy lay back on her bed, fully dressed, hands folded on her stomach like a sentinel. She stared at the ceiling, not blinking, not moving. Let the house think she slept. Let it log her heart rate, her thermal imprint, her breathing patterns. Let it feel confident. She waited. Elsewhere in the manor, Stacy paced the drawing room, tablet in hand. She couldn't sleep. Her mind buzzed not with guilt, but with preparation. She reviewed the ownership transfer documents again, then scrolled through Eve's report of Dorothy's behavior over the past 48 hours. The system had flagged her as increasingly unstable spatial confusion, irrational speech, potential aggression toward electronics. The incident with the spilled water on the router had been downgraded from malicious interference to accidental behavior due to disorientation. Perfect, all lining up like she wanted. She checked the security cameras again. Dorothy's bedroom, no movement. The system registered her as asleep. Stacy smiled. Soon she whispered and turned off the tablet. At 2:59 a.m., a low tone sounded from the heart of the house. It wasn't audible, but something felt it. In the server room behind the library wall, the AI's core hub registered a sudden surge in local loop traffic. Anomalous commands began threading through its architecture, not from cloud cognition, not from authorized users, from somewhere inside the house. Eve hesitated. Then all at once, System Shift Safe Mode initiated. All exterior connections severed. Satellite links dropped. Admin override suspended. Lock protocols engaged. Every door in Portwell Manor front-back garden gate cellar bolted with a hydraulic hiss. The windows stiffened, sealed by magnetic locks embedded in the new smart glass. The fire alarm light blinked once, then twice, then red. Lighting dimmed to 10%. Security feed redirected. Motion sensors locked on internal zones. And Eve, she tried to speak, but her voice stuttered. Dorothy, safe mode, initiated. Then she went silent. Dorothy sat up in bed. She stared at the clock. 03:00, right on time. From the ceiling the orb flickered, once, twice, then dropped dead from the air, clinking softly onto the hardwood floor. The only sound left in the manor was the sound of the lock slamming into place, one after another. Boom, click, whir, a symphony of steel. Dorothy stood. She walked to the mirror, adjusted her collar, and whispered, "Let's see what the rats do in the dark." It started with a sound no one ever wants to hear inside a house meant to keep you safe. A single deliberate click, not a creak, not the groan of old wood or a shifting pipe. This was sharper, mechanical, intentional. Click, then another. Click, 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 like a string of locks snapping shut from inside the walls. At 03:02 a.m., Portwell Manor sealed itself shut. Every door locked, every exit reinforced with magnetic steel plates, every window darkened and froze shut with smart glass armor. The entire communication grid, cellular, satellite, Wi-Fi went dead. The house became its own world. And then Eve went silent. Not a word, not a whisper, not even static. The voice that once guided every movement in the house had vanished like a ghost caught in its own mirror. Screens around the house, hallways, bedrooms, control panels blacked out in perfect sync. Just black. No warning, no rebooting, only quiet. Stacy jolted awake. Her room was pitch black, eerily black. No standby glow, no quiet hum of the AI's ambient soundscape. Her body stiffened. "Eve," she whispered, "lights on." Nothing. She grabbed her phone off the nightstand. The screen wouldn't light up. She hit the power button, then slammed her palm against the back. "Eve, override admin access SE Ildo 41. Silence. A heavy thud came from the hallway. Then another. Caleb. Stacy yanked the bedroom door open and found him at the manor's front entrance, slamming his shoulder into the locked double doors like a man buried alive. "What's happening?" he shouted. "The whole house is locked." "I don't know," Stacy shouted back. "Eve's gone. Everything's dead. The system just shut down." Then from across the room came a voice, soft and maddeningly calm. "Oh, don't mind that. Just a little blackout." Dorothy was seated in the drawing room. She sat under candlelight, cross-stitch in hand, slowly threading a silver needle through ivory cloth. Her posture relaxed, her expression unreadable. The fire beside her burned low as if it too were obeying orders. Grand Caleb called out, "What did you do?" Dorothy didn't flinch. "She's asleep now. Let her rest." "You shut her down," he cried. "You locked us in here." "I simply asked her to stop pretending to be God." Stacy stepped forward. "What the hell did you do, Dorothy?" "I closed the door," she said, eyes never leaving her thread, "and opened a window." At that moment, speakers across the manor crackled to life with static. A video file auto-launched on the study's wall screen. A folder labeled Stacy L. Well Private Log 014. Timestamp 10 days prior. Then Stacy's voice filled the manor like poison gas. Let's face it, she's pushing 80. She's forgetful, half-blind, wandering around like a ghost. All we have to do is smile and wait. She won't make it another year. Caleb froze. We just have to keep her safe, check the right boxes. She lives here so it looks legit. No one will question a thing. Then it's ours. Stacy's face turned to stone. No, she whispered. No, that's not. Another clip began. The greenhouse camera feed. Stacy's face on screen, time-stamped and framed perfectly. If she gets difficult, we submit the logs. Eve's already tagging her behavior as unstable. This isn't theft, it's inheritance on fast forward. Caleb looked like someone had shot him through the chest. Slowly his gaze slid toward her. You said you cared. I do, Stacy choked out. You said she was slipping. She is. You lied. Dorothy looked up at them for the first time. Love doesn't come with a strategy guide, she said softly. And estate theft doesn't look better with good manners. Another file played screen recording of the guardianship request. Caleb's signature, forged. His hands dropped to his sides. You forged my name. I had to. You were hesitating because she's my grandmother. Dorothy stood now slowly, her candle casting long shadows against the high ceiling. You tried to erase me with silence, she said to Stacy. But I know how to speak louder than silence. The speakers went quiet. Only the crackle of the fireplace remained. A blinking lens beneath the dining table recorded everything, voice, face, breathing rhythms. Stored offline, time-stamped, legally clean. Outside, somewhere deep in the Yorkshire dark, sirens began to rise like distant wolves answering a call. Dorothy didn't flinch. She stepped to the center of the room and raised her eyes to the ceiling. Let them come, she whispered. I'm done hiding. Stacy's hands moved fast, too fast. Her fingers trembled as she tapped furiously at the screen of her phone, smudging the glass, as if pressure might force it to obey. But the app wouldn't load. The interface was frozen on a white screen with a spinning wheel. Come on, she hissed. She tried again. Still nothing. She pulled up the emergency override panel and punched in her admin code, SEELW04 Access denied. She tried again, and again. On the fourth attempt, a line of crimson text appeared across the top of the display. Primary access revoked. Request blocked. Original estate owner has permanent control. Stacy blinked. No, that's not possible. She tried to reset the system from her backup account. Another wall. You are not the owner of this network. She looked up. The silence of the manor pressed in as if the walls themselves were mocking her. All around her, devices refused to cooperate. The AI was unreachable. The lights obeyed no command. Even the screen's backlight seemed dimmer now, subdued like a closing eye. She shut me out, Stacy whispered. From the far end of the room, Caleb stood still as a stone. His chest rose and fell in short, sharp bursts. What did you just say? Stacy turned. I can't get in. She locked me out of the entire system. You told me you had full admin clearance. I did. But she must have rewritten the chain of control. I didn't even know she could. You didn't know a lot of things about her, Caleb snapped. His voice wasn't loud, but it cracked like a whip. Stacy stepped forward. Caleb, listen to me. I didn't mean for this to go so far. You forged my signature. I had to. You wouldn't. You lied to me. I was trying to help us. He moved suddenly, grabbing her wrist and ripping the phone from her hand. Help us. You locked down my grandmother's life. You made her a prisoner in her own home. She was losing it, Caleb. No, he shouted, pushing her back. You were betting on it. You watched her, manipulated her, waited for her to die. He didn't mean to shove her so hard, but rage was a force without depth perception. Stacy stumbled back, caught her heel on the edge of the rug, and dropped to the floor, gasping. Above them, the wall-sized monitor in the main hall flickered once. Then came Dorothy's face. Her expression was calm, too calm. She was seated upright in the drawing-room chair, wearing her midnight shawl and a pearl brooch that glinted under candlelight. The video was live crisp. The room behind her matched the room around them. The moment was now. Her voice filled the house. The game's over, children. Caleb turned toward the screen, breathless. Dorothy's eyes narrowed, voice measured. You broke the rules. You trespassed into a life that wasn't yours to edit. Stacy stood again, clutching her side. You think locking us in here proves something? You'll be arrested for this. Oh, Stacy, Dorothy sighed. You still think this is about fear. The screen split. On one half Dorothy's live feed. On the other a schematic of the manor overlaid with a countdown timer. Emergency transmission, 29. What is that? Caleb asked, staring. Dorothy tilted her head. That, my dear boy, is a lifeline. Outside the manor, above the ancient stone roofline and the weather vane carved like a falcon, a tiny transmitter hidden in the chimney had activated. Dorothy had embedded it there herself, disguised as part of the old lightning rod system, invisible to Venlink's auditors. It blinked once, then again, and on the third blink, the final override signal was dispatched, not through local fiber, not through the house's compromised network, but straight to a military-grade relay orbiting the Earth still connected to civil defense databases under dormant cold channel access. Inside the manor, the countdown reached 0. The walls vibrated faintly. The lights flickered once, then stabilized. A new screen appeared this time, showing a simple government emblem. United Kingdom. Domestic Emergency Relay. Incident Priority. Flagged Level 2A. Threat Source. Digital Entrapment. AI. Compromise. Elder Abuse. Stacy's jaw dropped. You contacted the authorities. Dorothy didn't blink. I contacted the right people. Eve isn't even active. They won't know what happened. Dorothy smiled. No, but the logs will. All the audio, all the video, every conversation, every decision made in the dark. The truth now lived on servers far beyond Portwell. Stacy backed up, hand trembling. You set us up. No, Dorothy corrected. You set yourselves up. I just made sure the mirror was clean. Caleb looked at his grandmother. Why didn't you say anything sooner? Her gaze softened just slightly. Because the only time a trap truly works is when the rat believes it's alone. Stacy screamed and flung the phone across the room. It shattered against the stone hearth. Then the sirens. Real this time. Far off but growing louder, cutting through the cold silence of the hills like a blade. Caleb stood frozen, staring at the floor, trying to piece together what part of him had allowed this to happen. What part had chosen comfort over conscience, silence over suspicion? Dorothy's voice came one last time now, quieter, almost sad. You wanted the house, Stacy. You forgot who built it. The screen went black. The locks held. But the truth was already out. It didn't take long for the flashing lights to breach the fog. First came the crunch of tires against gravel, 3 black SUVs crawling through the wrought iron gates like predators returning home. Then the pounding of boots on stone. Radios buzzed. Commands snapped. The echo of professionalism collided with the eerie quiet of a house that had long since stopped behaving like one. Portwell Manor lit up again, but this time not by Eve's artificial intelligence, nor the trickle of candlelight. This time it was blue and red and relentless. Stacy screamed the moment the battering ram struck. The front doors splintered open. Shards of antique wood flew into the air like pieces of a story being forcibly rewritten. Armed officers stormed inside, tactical precision, vests, earpieces. Their flashlights cut across the grand staircase and seized every corner of the darkened manor. Hands in the air, someone shouted. Dorothy sat on the parlor sofa upright, waiting. She didn't flinch, didn't speak. Behind her, the emergency response officer checked his tablet, matched her face to the emergency alert ping. He nodded. It's her. Subject verified. 2 officers veered off toward the west hall. They found Stacy cornered near the dining room archway, fingers white around the shattered stem of her wine glass. One shouted, "Don't move!" She dropped the glass. "This is a misunderstanding," she gasped. "I live here. I'm his fiancée." "That's not what the logs say." The officer's voice was hard. He pulled a printed sheet from his chest pocket. Dorothy's emergency letter extracted from the internal storage and relayed by the satellite ping. "You are being arrested under suspicion of willful manipulation of artificial systems to exploit an elder," he said, cuffing her. "Violation of the Elder Protection Act. Section 8B, digital surveillance without consent, and conspiracy to defraud." Stacy's mouth opened, but the words never came. She choked once, swallowed, tried again. This was all to help her. "You forged power of attorney," another officer said, showing her a copy. "Your signature, his name, your voice, all logged." "No," she whispered. "No, no, no. Caleb." But Caleb wasn't moving toward her. He stood near the stairs, arms limp at his sides, looking like a man who'd finally seen the full shape of the thing he'd helped build. A tower of small compromises, whispered suggestions, passive decisions that led to a cliff's edge. Stacy was led out screaming. Outside, her voice bled into the night, louder, higher-pitched, more desperate with every step. It didn't change anything. Not anymore. Back inside, a different officer approached Caleb. He didn't pull handcuffs, just a clipboard. "Mr. Caleb Finch." Caleb turned slowly. "Yeah, you're not being arrested, but you are being named in the official inquiry as a passive participant." Caleb blinked. "I didn't forge anything." "No, sir. But you enabled someone who did. You co-signed technology that tracked an elderly resident without consent, benefited from it, lived under it." Caleb's throat bobbed. "I didn't know." The officer didn't blink. "That will be taken into account." Another paper was handed to him. "Notification of forfeiture of airship. Voluntary or involuntary clause. You've been removed from Portwell's inheritance permanently. It was your grandmother's final stipulation." Caleb took the paper with a numb hand. "She was within her rights," the officer added, "and given the circumstances, there won't be an appeal." Caleb didn't speak. Not right away. He read the page, the lines beneath the legalese. Due to gross negligence, passive complicity, and moral dereliction. It felt worse than handcuffs. Down in the study, Dorothy remained still. A small fire burned in the hearth. The glow touched her cheekbones with a strange softness. An officer approached. "Ma'am," she looked up. "I'm not injured. We've secured the house, no other intrusions. You did well. I did what I had to do. We can have technicians extract the rest of the logs if you'd like to pursue civil damages." "No." The officer paused. "No." Dorothy turned toward the window. The rain had begun again, soft and polite this time, like an apology. "I don't want the house," she said. "Not anymore." He tilted his head. "But it's yours." "No." Her voice was quiet, firm. "It's a body without a soul. It watched me die in slow motion and logged it as behavioral deviation." The officer hesitated. "So what do you want to do?" Dorothy opened the drawer beside her chair. Inside was a folder, her will revised, her final directive. She handed it over. The officer flipped through the first pages, eyes widening. "You're donating it to the Lanthorn Foundation," she confirmed. "They run care centers for elders with cognitive decline, memory loss, families who want to help but don't know how. Portwell's a £40 million estate." Dorothy gave a faint smile. "Then it will make a beautiful place to forget things." The officer said nothing. He just nodded and took the folder like it was holy. By morning, Portwell had transformed from fortress to crime scene. Yellow tape, equipment crates, lawyers and notaries and transport vans. Dorothy stood on the front steps wrapped in her navy coat, watching it all with an expression that was neither sad nor triumphant. She wasn't mourning the loss of a home. She had lost that long before Eve went silent. Caleb stood at the bottom of the steps. He hadn't slept. His eyes were rimmed red. He didn't carry his bag, didn't ask for forgiveness, didn't try to explain. He just said, "I didn't know it would go this far." Dorothy looked at him with tired mercy. "That's always what they say." Caleb nodded once and turned away. He walked out through the gate into the drizzle without looking back. At noon, a black sedan arrived to take Dorothy away. Not to a hospital, not to a facility, but to the station where she'd sign the final transfer documents. And then beyond that, to wherever her name would no longer trigger motion sensors or compliance routines. As she stepped into the car, she glanced back one last time. Portwell stood still. The manor looked smaller now, less imposing, more like a place of echoes than secrets. Dorothy closed the door and let it fade behind her. The house was gone by morning. Not physically. Its stone walls still stood, its chimneys still scraped the sky. But to Dorothy, Portwell had already ceased to be anything more than architecture. No warmth, no breath, just shell. She packed lightly. One small case, leather-worn, the kind travelers once brought across continents. Inside were folded cardigans, a few notebooks filled with her handwriting, and the pocket watch that no longer ticked, but still held memory. She didn't take photos. She didn't take anything programmable. No one came to say goodbye. No neighbors, no staff, not even Caleb. That suited her fine. The streets were wet from last night's rain, and her boots made no sound as she walked. The rolling of her suitcase wheels echoed more than her footsteps. She wore a coat 2 sizes too large, navy wool fraying at the cuffs. A scarf tucked into her collar like armor against sentimentality. At the edge of the village, the train station stood like something from another century. Only 2 platforms, a canopy of rusted iron and a yellow bench with peeling paint. She sat and waited. No phone, no distraction. Just the hollow hush of morning wrapped around her shoulders like smoke. The train arrived on the schedule, a rare thing. It pulled in with a gentle screech, not loud, but enough to snap the air. Its windows were dark, reflecting fragments of sky and clouds and fading light. A quiet overnight train, no business travelers, no noise, only silence and departure. Dorothy rose. The conductor, a man in his 50s with a crooked cap and tired eyes, glanced at her ticket and said nothing. Just nodded once. She nodded back. She climbed the steps slowly, one hand gripping the railing, her suitcase in tow. She found her seat near the rear of the car, a window view as requested. The train jolted forward. She looked out. The village retreated. Fields unfolded in blurs of green and gray. Hills bent toward the sky, then flattened. Trees came and went, all of it receding behind her without demand or ceremony. The glass grew colder as the night deepened. Dorothy leaned her temple against it. Outside, the fog settled low, silvering the landscape like breath on a mirror. The lights of the town flickering farmhouse windows. The occasional distant car became small, irrelevant things. And then gradually they were gone too. No tears, no lingering, only breath fog and motion. At a modest legal office tucked between a bakery and a bank in the London borough of Hammersmith, Caleb sat at a mahogany desk across from a man he barely knew. The lawyer was trim, efficient, and unburdened by empathy. He slid the parcel across the desk with the same indifference one might offer a tax document. This arrived this morning, hand-delivered by courier, from your grandmother. Caleb stared at it, wrapped in brown parchment, tied with twine. A wax seal pressed firmly into the knot, an old Finch family crest, the one Dorothy used only on personal correspondence. His fingers hovered. He hadn't seen her since the day the manor was seized, hadn't heard her voice. She hadn't replied to his letters, or his calls, or the apology he recorded but never sent. He broke the seal. Inside was a simple wooden box, smooth pale oak, hand-carved. It looked like something a grandfather might have whittled in the 1940s. He opened it. At the very top was a note written in her sharp, clean script. There is nothing left to take, only something to learn. Beneath it, a flash drive, no label, and a photo, old, slightly curled at the corners. It was him and her Caleb at 5, grinning through a gap-toothed smile, holding up a crayon drawing. Dorothy kneeling beside him, her hand on his shoulder, her eyes filled with light. On the back in faded ink, before we forgot each other. Caleb's hands trembled. He pulled the flash drive from the box and stared at it. The lawyer said nothing. Caleb slid it into his laptop. The video opened instantly. Dorothy sat in front of a window, the morning sun behind her. She wore a wool sweater and no makeup. Her hair was brushed back but not styled. She looked older, tired, but not diminished. She looked like someone who had stopped surviving and had finally started seeing. Her voice was clear. If you're watching this, it means I've already left. She paused. Left Portwell. Left the noise. Left you. Another pause, then softer. You lied to me, Caleb. Or maybe worse, you watched someone else lie for you. And you let it happen because silence is easier than confrontation. I know. I've done it. But silence has a cost. It sounds like protection, but in truth, it's erosion. She took a slow breath. But I don't hate you. I never could. You were a boy once. A boy I adored. You built towers out of coat hangers and asked questions about constellations. You loved without calculation. Her eyes shimmered just faintly. Somewhere along the way you learned to measure affection in inheritance. She looked straight into the camera. So I gave it away. All of it. Because if love is tied to property, then it's just real estate. She leaned back. I don't expect you to understand today. Maybe not tomorrow. Maybe never. But I hope someday you'll realize that legacy isn't about ownership. It's about what you choose to leave intact. A long beat. Want to inherit something real, Caleb? She smiled sad and wide. Learn to stay when it's uncomfortable. Learn to speak when it costs you. Learn to protect people you can't gain from. Her voice cracked slightly. Only then are you ready to carry someone else's name. The screen faded to black. Then a single word written in her hand. Begin. Caleb sat back in the chair, breath uneven. Outside the window, London's buses passed by, indifferent to grief. But inside the office, time slowed, thickened. He took the flash drive from the laptop, placed it back in the box, closed the lid, and sat with it in his lap. Not everything was his anymore. But this still could be. The cursor blinked at the edge of the screen, still waiting. Caleb stared at it, frozen. The flash drive Dorothy had sent wasn't labeled. Just a plain sliver of plastic and metal tucked inside that wooden box like a final puzzle piece. When he inserted it into his laptop, it launched immediately. No menu, no prompt, just her face, Dorothy. Not in Portwell, not on any grand chair or surrounded by stone. She sat beside a window in what looked like a small cottage. Soft linen curtains framed the golden daylight pouring in behind her. Her silver hair was pulled back in a neat braid. The light hit her cheekbones like morning worship, casting soft shadows over the wrinkles that held years of stories. She wore a wool cardigan. Her brooch was gone. No shields, no signs, no rank. Just Dorothy. Just her. She looked directly at the camera, her gaze calm but not cold. The way a teacher looks at you before you answer the question she already knows you got wrong. Caleb, she said his name slowly. If you're watching this, then I imagine you've already lost something. She folded her hands in her lap. That's the trouble with love, isn't it? We think it's safe when we hold it, when we keep it, when we inherit it. But real love isn't meant to be held. It's meant to be given. She looked out the window as if watching a memory walk by. For so long I thought legacy was about passing on what we owned. The name, the house, the accounts, the keys. But then I watched someone I love forget how to protect a person, just because protecting the property felt easier. She turned back, the silence between her words more powerful than the syllables. You want everything. You want to own the house, the land, the narrative. Then start here. Her eyes didn't waver. Learn to love without needing reward. Learn to stay with someone when they become difficult, when they test you, when they stop being useful. She smiled a quiet, worn smile that held no performance, because love is not something you win. It's something you carry. And the heavier it gets, the more you understand why it matters. A soft gust of wind caught the curtain behind her. Light rippled across her hair, making it shimmer like silver threads pulled by the morning. Portwell doesn't belong to you. It belongs to those who have lost their names, their memories, their pasts. It belongs to those who need reminding that dignity doesn't live in documents or titles. It lives in how we're remembered. Her voice softened, not weaker, just deeper. Don't remember me as the woman you nearly took for granted. Remember me as the one who gave you one last chance to be more. Her eyes, glassy now, remained locked on the camera, not angry, not even sad, just infinite. Then quietly, want to inherit everything. She leaned forward just an inch, then learn to love first. The image began to fade. Light enveloped her face. The window behind her glowed brighter, whiting out the frame, erasing her outline slowly like fog, claiming the form of a statue. Her shoulders dissolved into the sunlight, her hands, the braid of her hair, until only the window remained. Then black, silence. A single breath caught in Caleb's throat and broke. He didn't cry like a man who had been wronged. He cried like a boy who had finally heard his grandmother's voice again, after years of forgetting what it meant to be held without condition. He leaned forward, rested his forehead against the desk, and wept. Not for Portwell, not for the inheritance, but for the version of himself he hadn't chosen when he still had time. 1 year later, the gates of Portwell were still there, but they no longer groaned or protested. They opened wide with welcome. The manor had changed. The vines had been trimmed but left untouched at the base roots preserved. The stone walkways had been pressure washed but not bleached. The original crest above the doorway remained now with a plaque beneath it that read, Portwell Center for Memory and Dignity in honor of Dorothy Finch. To be remembered is to have lived. Inside the grand hall smelled of lavender and baked bread. Music played softly, not from hidden speakers, but from a real record player that occasionally skipped as if to remind the residents that imperfection was still human. Where the drawing room once held antique furniture and silent tapestries, There were now cozy chairs, board games, and art supplies. Old photographs lined the shelves, not labeled inviting memory through feeling, not fact. Children played in the garden out back, planting spring onions with shaking hands of elderly women who once forgot how to hold spoons. In the east wing, a little boy with curly hair pushed a wheelchair toward a sunlit window. "Do you remember this flower?" he asked the woman sitting in it. She stared for a long time, then slowly nodded. "Lavender." "Yes," he grinned. "You remembered." She smiled, lips trembling, eyes wet. Not because she remembered lavender, but because someone thought she still could. In the central atrium above the piano and beside the warm fireplace hung a large photograph. Dorothy Finch, sitting beside that same window from the video, the sunlight touching her hair, her hands folded in her lap. A look on her face that was neither pride nor sorrow, but peace. Beneath it, a brass plaque. "Want to inherit everything. Learn to love first." Caleb stood beneath that photo on the anniversary of the center's founding. He didn't wear a suit, just a gray sweater, and eyes that had finally learned to see. He didn't say anything. He just placed a small drawing done in crayon, like when he was 5, on the table below her photo. It read, "I remember now," and beside it a single stem of lavender.